All right, folks, welcome in. This is Yankees Unloaded. I'm Jake Ellenbogen. He is Gary Sheffield Jr. And we are talking about the Yankees one win away from clinching a playoff berth. Who would have thought? They're 4 games above in the AL East on the Orioles after they lost 10-0 to the Giants. The Yankees just had, on the flip side, the Yankees just had one of the best wins of their season, putting up 11 runs on a team that, well, they might do one thing well. Only one thing well, but they do it very, very well, and that's pitching. Not today. 7 runs given up by Brian Wu, a pitcher that has given the Yankees fits in the past. But, Gary, it's been kind of a whirlwind. I mean, the whole season's been kind of a roller coaster of emotions. I mean, worst loss of the season after worst loss of the season, and then you have the best win of the season, and it just feels like they've been kind of up and down all year. But Gary, what are your thoughts kind of going into, I guess, the rest of the year following this win? I mean, are you feeling really good about the postseason? Are you feeling good about potentially the World Series? I mean, where are you on the Yankees following this win? Because this felt a little different. It did.
Well, first of all, no one should be feeling good heading into this year's October baseball. Let's be serious about it here. All of these teams are flawed. Every single team, including the New York Yankees. The Yankees, they don't trust their closer. Baltimore, they don't trust their starting pitching or their closers, right? Baltimore called up young players they clearly needed an output from. They haven't gotten it. So you look around baseball, there is not one baseball team that should say, yeah, we feel like we're the top dog heading into October. But I'll tell you what will help. What will help is your best players getting hot at the right time. We've talked over the past 2 or 3 seasons, and we've looked at the Yankees' record in the second half. It is not good, Jake. It's not. You know these numbers. I know these numbers. Listeners to Yankees Unloaded understand these numbers. So having said that, is it good to be really good in the middle of September and late September? Yes, absolutely. And the Yankees have hardly ever done that these past few years. So it's not a surprise when you show up to October and you're not playing well. You weren't playing well 2 weeks ago. So right now, if we're learning anything about this team, Soto getting hot, Judge getting hot again, Gleyber Torres has established himself now as the 3rd best bat in this lineup, and he's not slotted in the 5th or 6th spot. He's our leadoff guy. His job is to get on base, period. He's getting on base at a 400 clip these past 30 days. That's elite. Now, you can say what you want about his glove. We understand the flaws there. We've talked about him on this show. But when this Yankees team gets in October, job number 1 is score the baseball. For the love of God, this Yankees team has struggled to score against elite pitching, period. And when you get into elite pitching, Seattle's got it, and we talked about it. Heading into this series, this is a really good test. We got a test today, and when you put up 11 runs against Seattle, that's a win. So I'm feeling really good about the Yankees' chances. Am I expecting them to just go win the World Series? Absolutely not. You have to go out and prove it. It's very difficult to do. But, Jake, we have to be feeling good.
Absolutely. I mean, I don't see how you wouldn't be feeling good. You're 1 win away from clinching a playoff berth. And I think at one point people wondered if this was going to be a playoff team or not, which is fair. I mean, they got off to a great start and then they had an awful skid. But I mean, kind of looking at this game, I mean, it had a little bit of everything, Gary. I mean, You get Oswaldo Cabrera at shortstop. You get a decent performance out of, Luis Gil. You get a home run out of Juan Soto, who has been struggling as of late, and he hit well today. You get a home run out of your rookie? I mean, what are we calling Jason Dominguez? But you get a home run out of him nonetheless. It was a lot of good out of this. And again, I think the biggest thing was they did against Brian Wu, a guy that already gave them fits early on in the season. So that's a good sign, in my opinion. That's something to build off of. Aaron Judge, he's been hitting well in the short term. Is he out of his slump? Maybe. I mean, he looked really good today, 323 batting average. And I think we saw it was Bobby Witt Jr. went down to 331. So it's not likely, but it's not impossible that Aaron Judge could actually get the Triple Crown this year. He's going to have to be at his best, and Bobby Witt Jr. is going to have to continue to slide here, but it's a possibility here. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and the good news here for Aaron Judge is that we don't necessarily have to just put up the big number 60 up on the board and only care about that storyline. The storyline this year is the Yankees winning. That's it. That is all. And you know something that Aaron Judge can do to help this Yankees team win? Hit. Just hit. He doesn't have to hit home runs. We're not chasing that duo home run record anymore. We don't care about him hitting 63 homers. I know a lot of people probably watching ESPN every day and they don't really watch the Yankees like that. They might care that Aaron Judge is chasing some home run record or chasing a Triple Crown. And we get it. It's a really cool storyline. But we actually talked maybe about 2 months ago about the legacy of Aaron Judge. And what is the final piece? Is it winning another MVP? Is it going to 2 or 3 more All-Star games? Is it winning more Gold Gloves out in right field or center field? And we agreed, actually, and it was pretty much unanimous in our comment section as well, that winning is the last step. Winning once. And right now, Aaron Judge understands that between now and game 1 of the ALDS, his job is to get hot. That's it. Because if he's hot, you see what our lineup looks like. Actually, Jake, we see what this lineup looks like with a hot Aaron Judge and a hot Juan Soto and nobody else doing really much of anything. An ice-cold Gleyber Torres, right? No Jason Dominguez, an ice-cold Anthony Rizzo. And yet the Yankees were winning a ton of games by just pitching pretty good and having those two go out there and just duke it out. But you know what? Right now, Gleyber Torres is hot, right? Austin Wells is now established. He wasn't established at that point in the season. So we actually as well talked about Jason Dominguez, right? And what's he going to do in October? Well, I told people, temper your expectations on a young player, but remember the role he's in, right? Jason Dominguez is not showing up to this team hitting third. He's not showing up in a run producer's role. He's hitting 6th or 7th. So what you saw today is he gets to hide at the bottom of the lineup with a bunch of talent and no pressure whatsoever. And he's going to do the exact same thing in October. Nobody's going to be circling Jason Dominguez, right? They're not going to be circling his name. They're going to be figuring out matchups with the rest of the lineup that's been scoring runs for the past month. How do we stop those guys? And then Jason Dominguez gets to come up right behind that. That's something that teams should be afraid of. And unfortunately, there's enough guys right now going well that you can't necessarily prepare for all of them. And again, Jake, I have to circle back to the main point here is that can this team, it's the question that everyone wants to know, can this team actually win the World Series? And everyone always compares this Yankees team to teams of the past and how complete those teams had to be to go win a championship. And I keep bringing this point up is that the Yankees don't have to be as complete or more complete than any team in history. Not at all. They need to be more complete than the team in front of them in October. They failed at that mission over the last 14 years. Can they do it now? I actually believe, looking at this team, if they play well into the last pitch of the regular season, there is no team in baseball that has the personnel to override that. So I don't want to get people's hopes too high, but this is the first time in a while we've seen quality baseball in September. We've seen mental mistakes, right? But we've also seen timely hitting and some decent pitching. And now today we get Marcus Stroman giving us 3 innings in garbage time. Exactly the role, Jake, that we talked about that he would be in. Very low stress. Go out there, give us some innings. We're not going to burn Conley. We're not going to throw Weaver out there, right? Holmes is going to be off his feet. You give everyone a chance to rest. It gives us the best chance to prepare for October. I am excited. I don't know if you could tell.
I'm with you, though. I mean, that's the thing. When you look at what the Yankees are bringing in October, they have the best, I mean, by far, have the best lineup when fully healthy, right?
Right.
So you talk about having the best lineup, second in scoring. The pitching is starting to come together again. We've had bits and pieces and spurts and all that, but the pitching is starting to come together. The batting, like I mentioned, best lineup. And all this and no Clay Holmes in the closer role. So it's like the things that were holding this team back seem to be either correcting itself or they've already been corrected. Right. That's what gets me excited about this team, is that you're not sitting there like, oh, well, they're going to go as far as Clay Holmes allows them to. No, Clay Holmes can be an asset in the 8th inning. He doesn't, he still can be a part of this team. I've been really intrigued with Luke Weaver, and I've really liked what I've seen. And I've really liked what I've seen, as of late from, aside from Cole's last outing. I mean, the starters have looked really good too. So the Yankees are in a position right now where, I mean, you could argue the one guy who was really kind of in a slump was Soto of the contributors. Obviously, Rizzo hasn't been great, 0 for 5 today. But when you look at, the fact like Soto was struggling and now he had the game he did today, if he can get out of that and you have Judge out of that, and to your point, it's not just Soto and Judge anymore. You now have Glaber. You now have Wells. I think they have enough there. I think they have enough ammunition, and I think they can win the World Series. I do. Yeah. But
do you remember Garrett Cole? Yeah. Do you remember bringing up Garrett Cole? You just brought up Garrett Cole's name, right?
Yeah, because he didn't do well last start.
He didn't do well last start. That's actually a really good point that you brought up. But you know who was really good during the COVID postseason for the Yankees? Garrett Cole. But what's so ironic about that is Garrett Cole was absolutely atrocious against the Boston Red Sox. Every time he's pitched against him, he's been terrible. He just is. Some teams just have your number. And would I like to just say, oh, we'll just chalk it up to he just can't beat Boston? No, I don't like that at all. It bothers me. Absolutely. But when it comes to projecting Garrett Cole in October, I believe utilizing his starts and cherry picking his starts against the Boston Red Sox and then trying to draw a conclusion about who you're going to see in October, I think that in itself is a mistake. I do. I think Garrett Cole just gets in his head against Boston. Certain matchups are with that team, right? Certain management, they're going to run on him. Obviously, you have the Devers situation that he has to deal with, and mentally and physically. But is it acceptable that he gets shelled against Boston? Absolutely not, because what if you face Boston in October sometime down the line? Obviously, that's a problem. But we're not going to see Boston in October this year. We're going to be seeing the remaining teams in baseball. And you know who Garrett Cole's been excellent against? The remaining teams in baseball. So I'm excited about Garrett Cole. I understand we would love the timing of his starts to be really good towards September, but I'll tell you this. If there's one player on this team I'm not worried about, it is 45. Not worried about him. I'm just not. I'm more worried about how does Luis Gil, a very young pitcher in this league, he was pretty good today. How does he deal with postseason pressure, right, with everybody watching? How does he deal with that? How does Carlos Rodon deal with pitching for the Yankees in October? How does he deal with that? We talked about his demeanor. Those are question marks that this team absolutely has. They need to answer them. But Garrett Cole? What's Garrett Cole done in October that's made you worry? Hasn't made me worry at all. I'm actually mostly excited for his starts. I think there's other question marks that we absolutely can answer.
Yeah, I don't think there are many guys that concern me, going into the playoffs. I mean, now that Clay Holmes is out of the closer role, we kind of have an idea of what Volpe and Rizzo are. Who really concerns you? Because to be concerned, it would mean that, you view this as an issue. Like, this is something that could be a problem. And I don't look at really anything and think, this is going to be a huge problem. You know what I'm saying? I just don't. That's not how I look at it. And I mean, I could be missing somebody, but for the most part, I don't really feel like there's one specific person that needs to step up that I'm really concerned with. I think if you were to go through and be nitty gritty and picky about it, Carlos Rodon's home runs, that's concerning. I mean, I'll say that. It absolutely is concerning. Giving up the long ball
Clay Holmes
in a game that could be 2-1.
I would say Clay Holmes, because you have to remember, the role that Clay Holmes is in maybe isn't closer anymore. And that's valid. I think that's a good decision from the Yankees. A good decision. Great decision from Aaron Boone. Obviously, probably took a little too long to happen. But either way, we're there before October baseball, and that is a good thing. But I will say this. The situation that Clay Holmes is going to be coming into is not the ninth inning anymore. It is still high leverage. It is still the eighth inning. And he's shown through long-term data that he can handle the eighth inning, and that is a good thing. But I'll tell you, Jake, me seeing Clay Holmes out there and seeing his name on the box score, that still makes me nervous in a postseason setting. It just does. It would be the same feeling I had if Aroldis Chapman pitched the eighth as opposed to the ninth inning. I've seen a lot as a Yankees fan with Aroldis Chapman on that mound. So am I saying that I'm as worried with Clay Holmes in the eighth inning as the ninth? Absolutely not. But I will tell you this. Anytime we get to the back end of the bullpen and we're trying to get those last outs, the Yankees haven't had much success over the years. Shouldn't mean that we're freaking out about it, panicking on our show after a big 11-1 or 11-2 win against the Mariners at home. But it is a cause for concern. It is a question mark. And we have plenty of time to get that figured out. We do. And frankly, luckily for us, we don't have to do anything. I just get to hook up my AirPods and my mic, which is on the floor right now, not working. So if you're wondering why I sound like Tony Stark again, that is due to the mic. But this Yankees team is a little bit more exciting, Jake, than most other teams in the sport. They just are. Some teams like the Dodgers are dealing with injuries. Unfortunately, we never like to see that. But it's a situation that they're very clearly dealing with, right? Baltimore is doing what the Yankees do. They have a really good season, really good first half of the year, great starting pitching, some decent back end of the bullpen work. And then all of a sudden, you get to September and early October, and you're not playing good baseball. And then what do they tell you? Well, we're going to try to get back on the hump. Did we ever get back on the hump? We didn't. So what do we expect from Baltimore? To skedaddle right out of October baseball, and the Yankees need to be on the top. That's it. So I'm looking forward to it, and I can't say that everyone should be hopeful, but I know I am, and I haven't been over the years, so I'm trying to do something different.
Yeah, I mean, after tonight, to just go on the West Coast and, you know, you probably have jet lag, whatever, and you go out there and you play the game that you do against Seattle, which, I mean, we know Seattle has no semblance of an offense, but just what they were able to do against their pitching was just really impressive. And this is what we've been hoping for. I mean, before this game even happens, you see the Orioles go up, they go down 10-0 to the Giants, and you're thinking, oh, Yankees got to win this. Yankees had to win it beforehand, but now you can go up 4 games. I mean, if they go up another one, it's going to be hard for the Orioles to get back in it. So we will see. Now, I want to bring up something from yesterday because we did every hitter, who would make the postseason roster likely, whether we trusted them or not. But we didn't get to the rotation. So I'm gonna throw out rotation names. You tell me if you trust them and why or why not. And let's let it roll. We'll start off. I mean, Garrett Cole, we can kind of just skip because we both trust Garrett Cole.
Yeah, and what's funny is that there are a lot of people who do listen to us that maybe don't. And I understand it's recency bias. It is, well, you didn't pitch against Boston. Maybe you're unproven. Now you got to prove it to me again. But as far as I'm concerned, what Garrett Cole's proven already is that he can pitch in these games. So that's more of a regular season foe. That is just more his own journey and his personal career. But when he gets to October, all those storylines that he deals with, those aren't a problem. Garrett Cole's not a problem.
I like it. And then Carlos Rodon.
I don't trust him at all. I don't. And this is somebody who very clearly has the physical skill set to do exactly what it is that we need. We don't need 7 full, 7 1/3 of shutout baseball. We can even accept the random home run that Rodon gives up. But what we cannot have is a player who is wild, who's walking 3 or 4 guys, who's hitting batters, who's throwing his arms up on the mound and losing composure. October baseball, you are going to get punched in the jaw once or twice. It is just going to happen. And you need to figure out a way to get back on the horse and go. That's just the way it goes. And I just don't know if I've seen Carlos Rodon show enough resolve in the regular season as a Yankee to just make the assumption or just have the belief that he's going to deliver in October. Now, I'm obviously hoping for it because it's good for our show. It's good for our audience. But is Carlos Rodon the type of personality that works in October? He's going to have to show it to us, and we're rooting for him. So I can say right now, truthfully, I don't trust him.
So I don't either because he hasn't given me a reason to. I mean, you look at, yeah, I mean, he's had some good outings. He's had some bad outings. I mean, I think September, he's been great. He has. He's a 2.60 ERA, which is
deserves
great.
Credit for that.
Yeah, he does. At the same time, August 4.15. He had a 7.76 in June. He's really kind of been up and down, up and down, up and down this year. And I can't really trust that in the postseason, if I'm being honest. So
I mean, he's streakier than a freaking seventh grader's gym shorts. He's streaky, brother. No one knows, but Carlos Rodon can go out there and throw a no-hitter in game 2 of the ALDS. And then the next day, he can give up 8 in a third of an inning. And we just yank him off the mound, and Yankee Stadium is booing the crap out of him. This is why I think anybody saying that they have a genuine prediction of an understanding of what Rodon will do, good or bad, I think that is just that malpractice to even say that you know what he's going to do. Nobody knows, Jake. And I know that none of these players, it's why we play baseball. It's a sport. We don't know what any of them are going to do. But most players on this baseball team have some type of baseline that you come to expect. And Rodon, you just mentioned his numbers in June. Are you kidding me? That same pitcher did what he did in August? How's that possible? We don't know. How's it possible in September? We have no idea. He doesn't know, I don't think. So, Jake, if you have a prediction about Rodon, I would love to hear it of why you expect him to do what he's going to do. But I think this is what we're going to do. We're going to cross our fingers and just hope for the best.
Yeah, I mean, his postseason pitching, he's 0-1, 2 games pitched, 1 start. He went 2 2/3, 4 runs given up. He's got a 3 whip, a 13.50 ERA in the postseason. Very small sample size, but that still matters. I just don't see how anybody could trust him based on that alone.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong at all. So who we got next? Because I think people agree with that. Rodon has the physical tool set. He's got it all. He's got the fastball. He's worked on that changeup, and he's going to use that in the postseason. No question about it. But he's got the power slider. All that's going to play in October. We know what it can do, but it's will you do it, right? We've known what these Yankees rosters could do, but when you get to October and you don't do it over an extended period of time, now I have to start saying, will you ever do it? Rodon, at the very least, he doesn't have a long sample size of failure in October. That's the only good news here, but we know he's a wild card.
Oh, yeah. And then Luis Gil is next. And I can't say I trust him when he's never pitched in the postseason before. I feel like when you say you don't trust somebody, people only look at the negative implications of that. But I just don't feel like Luis Gil has even pitched long enough for me to know if I can trust him. So with that said, I don't trust Luis Gil. Doesn't mean I dislike him.
Yeah, it's almost kind of reminds me of the people that ordered the Cybertruck, right? They ordered that damn thing, and if you told them, do you trust this purchase? Do you think it's going to be a good buy? You have no idea. No one's ever owned a Cybertruck before. It may be the best purchase you ever made. It may be awesome to own a truck that's electric and there's no electrical problems. It doesn't explode like old Teslas, right? It could be great, but it also can be terrible, right? So that's just somewhat of what we can expect from Luis Gil. He's a very young player, and unfortunately for him, he's a guy that maybe people are going to be overly judgmental about what he does, but we have to remember, young players have had success in October before. We saw it with Soto, right? You can't just chalk people up because they're young that they're going to be a klutz in October. Gleyber Torres. You can't just assume somebody because they're 21 or 22 years old that they're just going to stink up the joint because veteran players tend to play better in October. That is objectively true, but some players are just built different, and you have to put them in the fire to see what they're made of. So let's just see. I'm not going to say I don't trust him. To your point, exactly the point you're really bringing up. It's not that we don't trust Luis Seal. It's that we've seen nothing yet. So let's just keep him somewhere in the middle.
I like that. Nestor Cortez, do you trust him or you don't trust him?
I trust him from the simple standpoint of timing. Nestor Cortez has been up this year. He's been down this year, but he's been up at the end when it matters. And that's something that I believe put him in this October rotation. It's what put Marcus Stroman in the bullpen in the first place. Nestor Cortez has established himself as a pitcher who's at his best right now. And we've talked all day long about the Yankees being at their best when it actually matters. Late September, you're going to go win an AL East, you're going to go win a pennant, and then you go to the World Series, you go win that thing, right? In order to do that, you need to be at your best right now. It doesn't just start in October, it starts now. So Nestor Cortez, based on the timing of when he's pitching his best, I'm going to say I absolutely trust him. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, so for his career postseason wise, he's 1-0 with a 4.5 ERA in 3 games, 12 innings pitched, 11 hits given up, 6 runs. He's got a 1.5 whip. I feel like it's too small of a sample size to entirely go off it. And the same could be said about Rodon. But to your point, I do trust Nestor because of the rhythm he's found as of late. I feel like he's in a really good place. I right now trust him. And that's just the reality of it. Like I wouldn't be against him being the number 2 starter ahead of Rodon, ahead of Heel, just because of where he is right now.
Yeah, and he's around the plate too. That's another thing. When you're talking about October baseball, a walk with 2 outs becomes a rally. That's something that's different about October baseball that is like no other time in this game, because people who don't watch this sport habitually, they don't watch it. People who don't watch in May, they don't watch in July, and then they just turn it on in October. They just assume that playing good baseball and pitching well in July translates to October. It doesn't. You need to look at what's a pitcher good at. Is he around the strike zone? Does he allow guys to reach base with 2 outs and now suddenly there's a rally? Well, that's something that Nestor Cortez, as of right now, he's limited. He's all over the strike zone. He had a long streak of not walking anybody. Like we're talking 2.5 games. So that's super impressive in my opinion. And one thing you just can't have, Jake, you cannot have a pitcher that can't find the strike zone in October. People are going to be running the bases harder. They're going to be more aggressive. And we're a team that's susceptible to the stolen base. We do not want anybody giving out free passes on the mound. Nestor Cortez is somebody who obviously, is he the next CC Sabathia? Is he someone I just want to slam the ball in his glove? No, absolutely not. But I trust him more than a lot of other 2s in the big leagues. And frankly, we're going to have to lean on that.
I like it. And last but not least, Clark Schmidt. Do you trust him?
For the same reason of Nestor Cortez. Now, the one question mark I've got, he hasn't been around, Jake. He hasn't been around. Now, that could work to his benefit. He may be more fresh, but I don't want to just try and circle it back as a positive for him, because being out on the field will help you in October. The more you're out there, the more success you have, the more we can rely on you when the pressure's on. So for him, it's more of a situation of you're going to have to show it to me again. But we have mentioned, Jake, I know your dad mentioned this, that Schmidt could be an option at the back end of this bullpen, right? He's a guy who's got really good stuff. I think that stuff might play in October, but he's a guy in the middle, like Luis Heel. I don't know what I'm going to get from him.
That's definitely fair. I'm going to trust him mainly because I think this whole year he's been awesome. And I just think that's kind of who he is. And kind of a really big thing for me is when I look at Clark Schmidt, I see a guy that high leverage wise is awesome. He's just really good in high leverage moments. I think he's going to thrive in the atmosphere of the postseason. So whether that's him as the closer, whether that's him as an opener, full-time, go ahead starter, whatever, he's going to thrive in his role. I trust Clark Schmidt.
Weren't you the one that told me that postseason baseball, there's no such thing as low leverage anymore?
Yeah.
That seems to work in the benefit of Clark Schmidt. To your point, I think that given the situation, 2 outs, nobody on, no score, right? You give up a walk and you now all of a sudden you're going out in the stretch in October. That's a high stress situation. You give up a 2-run home run. Your manager might not feel the confidence in you, might yank you right then and there. We've seen it plenty of times. Not in the regular season. The regular season, they give you time to get settled into your start. No, not in October. Every single game matters. Unless it's garbage time. But every game matters. To your point, Schmidt is elite in high leverage situations to the point where we almost threw him out there as a closer or in the setup man role. So, yeah, I think that could benefit him. Absolutely. Especially in a big series against a really good hitting team. But I guess where I'm at with it, I put him in the middle. But as far as skill set, I almost feel like I trust him more than Luis Gil just because he's around the strike zone. So I'm going to say I trust him. I think you've convinced me.
There we go.
Yeah, I've been evangelized. I'm to the other side.
So I think that's going to wrap it up. We have one mailbag here from Ed W. And then, Gary, you'll throw out your movie for those of you that stuck around. So
let's go. It's already popped in my head. Can't wait.
So mailbag from Ed W. Something to flag. The magic number for the Yankees versus Baltimore is only 10. That could be all but resolved by the Orioles series next week. But the Yankees are a bit further from guaranteeing home field in the LCS and even further from World Series home field. What, in your view, is the right playbook for this? Meaning, I don't see Boone as the guy who wants to just go out and win, even when they close out the Orioles to lock in home field and go into the playoffs with momentum. Anyway, I'm sure there's a lot here. So if you think it's worthwhile, please give us your view. Thanks for all the hard Sunday work to do this podcast on a fall Sunday with NFL must be tough. Yeah, just a little bit.
I appreciate your honesty. Yeah, we love football. So yeah, it is tough. It's not tough. We're doing a podcast, but
yeah,
we enjoy ourselves. But I mean, to answer the question, the Yankees, I don't even think we should try to read the tea leaves of what Boone does towards the end of the regular season. And I understand that we would like to finish it strong. And I think that is important, of course. But let's remember what is actually important and the way we're really going to judge this team. We are only going to judge them based on what they do in October. And frankly, whether they're playing games at home or on the road, it's just not going to matter. It's not. Does that mean that you shouldn't try to go out and destroy Baltimore in that series and go win the AL East? Absolutely, you should. Absolutely. But does it mean that the Yankees have just wildly increased their chances of going home because they're suddenly playing on the road? Absolutely not. And the answer here is the Yankees' pedigree this season on the road. Go look at their record. The Yankees are great. They're actually elite. We're probably one of the best teams in baseball on the road. So based on what the Yankees do in the regular season, I think right now we're just trying to hit the ground running heading into October. Now, based on the situation we're currently in, the Yankees, if they are technically hitting the ground running into October, that would literally mean outrunning Baltimore. You're up 4 games. So if you suddenly blow this lead, yeah, the Yankees have lost all momentum and they're going to feel like they've collapsed. You know why? Because they did. And you're likely not going to go win the World Series because there is not a team in baseball that has just completely collapsed in late September and then just suddenly went on a miraculous run. The Giants in the early 2010s didn't do it, right? None of those teams that you can remember, the Cardinals who went out and won, they didn't do it. They all were really good right in this little window we've got right now. So take it for what you will, but this is our little preview to October ball. And technically speaking, and none of it's going to matter once October gets tipped off because Aaron Boone is managing for his job. He just is, and maybe some of you think he won't be fired, but I know, Jake, you've kind of introduced the idea that potentially he would be if he didn't at least make it to a World Series. I think the pressure's on, and that's a good thing for once.
I agree. And I'll go as far as to say this. I heard during the broadcast today, Kay brought it up, was like, yeah, I mean, you start getting to, the magic number of, what it is to win the AL East. And then you start looking at potentially sitting starters and whatnot, and getting yourself ready. I would push back harder than hell on sitting starters.
Wait, he said wait, was he introducing the idea or was he saying that they potentially should if that situation comes up?
He was introducing the idea, what happens if you clinch the AL East?
You absolutely play the games. 100%.
100%.
And what you saw, look at you saw last year. You saw the Braves, the Dodgers, all fall to who? Were they falling to better baseball teams? And some might argue that the Arizona Diamondbacks were, a better baseball team than the Dodgers. They played well at the end, and that's what actually matters. They're completely right. But the issue you have here is, are you hitting the ground running in October? You know what's not going to help you be hot heading in October? Sitting down for 6 days in a row and then just expecting to get off your butt, hitting batting practice, and then thinking you're going to hit October pitching. Jake, we know that doesn't happen. Most teams that win the World Series are teams that played playoff baseball even before the playoffs started. That's just how it's gone. This sport is lunacy, and I'm glad Michael K brought it up. 100%. It is a question that needs to be answered. But as far as I'm concerned, the Yankees resting people would just be barbaric. I would probably lose my mind.
Yeah, no, I am of the 100% agreement there, because I just feel like you have guys such as Jason Dominguez that, is he in a rhythm now? Probably a little too early to say, but the home run today made me feel like, okay, he's starting to get things going. And then you have Glaber, who's going 3 for 4 tonight, right? And you got Judge, and it's like, we've seen how easy it is to get into a slump. Why even risk it? Just do your thing. If anything, I'm almost worried that the way the playoffs are, I'm almost worried that a wild card team is almost destined to win the World Series. And the reason I say that, or at least get there, reason I say that is because it's like the play-in game during March Madness. How many times have we seen the play-in 11 seed? They win, they play before everyone else. The next game, that team is exhausted. They played against a crappy opponent. And then that 11 seed that had to actually earn it, had to play an additional game. They're all ready to go, because people think, and they gaslight you. Yeah, well, people think about it in one way, Gary. They only look at it as, wow, that team is probably exhausted because they had to play more. I don't look at it like that. You're talking about competitors at the highest level. These guys are ready. They're revved up. We say rev.
You do.
I don't know, man. That's how I see it. I think you got to keep playing, and it feels wrong, but sometimes things that feel wrong are the right things to do.
So you're introducing the idea that the team that's the lower seed had to do more to get in October. So they're technically more wound up to play this series in the now. Mm-hmm. They may be risking health in the short term, but if they get through healthy, they're more dangerous than you are. So a lot of teams that go out there, they say, well, we're not going to put a huge emphasis on extending our guys to go get that 1 seed, because you see that March Madness effect is real. You saw the Arizona Diamondbacks just go torch the Dodgers last year, right? They weren't nearly as good in the regular season. But you can't use that as an excuse. You know what you can do, though, Jake? You can do things as a top seed that prepares you as if you're not the top seed. That's how you handle it. Now, it's not going to just magically change it. You've got to go out there and play baseball. But the one thing I will say is you can't use it as an excuse anymore, because you allowed your players to continue playing. You allowed Jason Dominguez to stay on the field. You allowed Judge and Soto to continue playing. Because you know what, a lot of people, there are going to be some people in our comments that say, you know what, if the Yankees have the number 1 seed locked up, we've got 2 games left in the season, get Judge off his feet, get him fresh, get Soto off his feet. We can't risk his injury. But you know what? What about risking them being good in October? How about that? Is there any has anyone done the analytics about how good a hitter is facing October pitching after 2, 3, 4, 5 days off? No one's really shown us those analytics. They only show you what they look like if they're injured or healthy. And so I think there's some questions that need to be answered as far as what the Yankees do. I'm glad Michael K brought it up. It's a good question to answer, but time will tell. Aaron Boone's going to show us firsthand what he's going to do, because if it's my guess, the Yankees should be taking care of business. They should be the 1 seed. They should be outrunning Baltimore. But based on kind of the way we've handled this team over the years, I would not be shocked at all if you saw Judge off his feet. If you saw Soto sitting, would it shock you?
No, it wouldn't. How would it shock us? I mean, we've seen it. This is the type of stuff we see, the double days off that we can't stand. I mean, this is the type
those are terrible.
Yeah, this is the type of stuff we always see. I mean, technically, Volpe got a double day off. No one's complaining about it, but he did. Stanton got a double day off. It's silly, but I don't know. I was going to say, you know what else is silly? The movie that Gary's going to pick, except I don't know what movie Gary's going to pick.
You're totally right, because that movie is The Other Guys. One of my favorite movies of all time. Mark Wahlberg, Will Ferrell, one of the greatest movies ever. It is great. And like I told you before, Jake, we need to bring comedies back. And I think our audience will agree with that. Maybe some won't. But The Other Guys, one of the greatest movies ever. We even got a Derek Jeter cameo. I'm just upset A-Rod wasn't in that movie, because since they mentioned him.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a great movie selection. So, guys, put Other Guys in the comment section below if you made it to this point in the episode. And we'll be back tomorrow. We got 2 more games in the Seattle series, more late recordings coming our way, because, the Mariners games start at like 9:40. So, on the 9:40 Eastern time. So, yeah. We'll be back, but be sure to like, subscribe, and comment. Check out our Discord channel. Link is in the description comment section below, totally free. And you can also check us out on all audio formats, podcasts, platforms, whichever you listen to. And yeah, that's going to do it.
And we'll do it again and again. Like